Hi, and welcome to this short video on understanding anger. Have you ever wondered what that anger is about? You feel yourself flare up or experience someone else flaring up? And not just the reactive part, but what's underneath it. My name's Laura Santamaro, and in this video, we're going to better understand that anger. The first step here is taking a step back, however, and understanding that all behavior is reasonable and adaptive. Whether we are flaring up and arguing, or even sometimes turning away, withdrawing, being more quiet, we could criticize, yell, or sometimes even isolate. That all those behaviors are reasonable and adaptive when we understand them in context, that it is about our survival, and not necessarily our physical survival, but emotional survival. So, what we're really focused on here is connecting this piece that behavior is not a random event, that it is preceded by an emotion, and those emotions drive our behavior. In this case, right, we are looking at anger and how that anger can drive my behavior, whether it's yelling or defending, again, criticizing or hostility, that there is a connection between emotion and behavior. Behavior is not random. So, just to reiterate one more time, right? Behavior is not a random event. It is preceded by emotion, and that emotion drives our behavior, right? I think so many people here have a tendency to get caught when they don't connect these dots, and we experience our own behavior or behavior of others. And we have a tendency to label them, whether it's good, bad, right, wrong, or a personality characteristic, or I'm too much, I'm too needy. In fact, when we start understanding that behavior is not a random event and we start looking at the underlying emotion, we can really begin to see that that behavior is designed to protect us from pockets of hurt, fear, and shame, the things that are underneath that anger. It is a protection. The cool thing here is once we start connecting that our behavior is preceded by emotion and not necessarily random, is it becomes a little bit of a game changer, the way we view ourselves or potentially view our partners and others. Rather than being so negative about the behavior, we can realize our behavior makes sense. We're not crazy, we're not bad, we're not flawed. We're just humans who are trying to protect ourselves. Here we're going to begin to unpack emotion and understand that there are two types of emotion. There are secondary emotions and what we call primary emotions. The secondary emotions are the more surfacey, easier to express emotions, things like irritation, confusion, anger, and so forth. Primary emotions are harder to share. They're deeper, vulnerable, softer emotion, and there's only six: fear, hurt, shame, joy, surprise, and justifiable anger, which is very different than reactive anger. The way I like to categorize this is secondary emotions are kind of like the onion. There's layers to the onion. Primary emotions are like the heart of the matter. So again, we use those secondary emotions to cover up the heart of the matter. So we don't really see what's happening there on a primary level. So just to reiterate, secondary emotions, easy to express, more surfacey. We tend to show them to each other more readily, and primary emotions, harder to share and frequently get covered up. Another visual image, just to piggyback that, I like to use my iceberg metaphor. If this is my water line and I have a tip of the iceberg on top of the water line, right, that is what we tend to see, and in relationships, what we tend to show. But underneath is the larger portion of that iceberg. And in this case, those primary emotions, the more vulnerable ones, which don't get seen. So at this point, we have laid a solid foundation for understanding emotions, and we'll shift our focus to anger. I like to put anger on a continuum between 1 and 10, and that can start with annoyance, irritation, building into frustration, and reactive anger, all the way to rage at a 10. What I encourage all of us to do is begin thinking about, what am I hoping will happen when I get angry? Then we can really start identifying what the function and purpose is. So again, I get angry in hopes that what will happen. In broad brushstrokes, we're looking at the two functions of anger. One is to turn the heat up. Usually that's in hope for change. Or two, turn the heat down to stop the conflict. Here in turning the heat up, I am trying to be heard, to keep someone engaged, to create change. In other words, if I didn't get angry, if I didn't turn up the heat, what would change? Essentially, turning up the heat is my hope for creating change. If I can be seen, be heard, keep you engaged, then maybe we could do it differently. If I don't say anything or turn up the heat, typically nothing changes and I can feel hopeless. Conversely, the other strategy is to turn the heat down. I am trying to stop a painful dynamic and potentially stop conflict. These are places where I can feel like I don't really know what to do, or if I stay engaged, it isn't going to go well. So, in that moment, my best strategy is to turn down the heat, to protect myself from the distress and pain of that conflict and not knowing what to do. Connecting all the dots, we can see that anger is reasonable and adaptive when we start understanding it in the context of protection to avoid pain. So, if I am turning the heat up, it is really my hope for change, my hope that I can stop the pain of being unseen, unheard, and disconnected. Or if I turn the heat down, to realize that it's really adaptive because I'm trying to escape the pain of conflict and not knowing what to do or how to make it better. It becomes abundantly clear that anger can be adaptive in terms of that self-protection. Yet the other side of the coin is recognizing that it is also maladaptive in terms of relationship. Luckily, we have exit ramps here and we're not totally stuck, right? Increasing our awareness and understanding our own behavior and anger, understanding that there is some function and purpose to it. We are able to do it differently if we can slow ourselves down and lean into those primary, more vulnerable emotions that the anger can sometimes hide. A quick review of the key components of this video. We are looking at how all behavior is reasonable and adaptive when we understand it in context. We are looking at how emotion drives behavior, that the two puzzle pieces are connected, and that anger is used to either turn up the heat, create change, or anger is used to turn down the heat to avoid conflict. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been helpful and that you've learned something. And as always, please feel free to reach out should you have any questions or comments. So appreciate it. Thanks.